in my life, I never really make plans. So it's not that I wanted to be a director or I planned to get to this place. I very much live in the moment, and I live and I listen to myself. I listen to what is right for me in a particular phase of my life. So I think it was a natural progression of my artistic evolution, but the request to be and being asked to come to Vienna as the artistic director was definitely not something I planned. It's something that came, and I realized it was the right time for me. So it was very smooth. It was a very natural step. I think that, I had such the privilege to have such a long career and a very international career, so which prepared me for, without knowing, for the role. So when I stepped into the position as an artistic director here in Vienna, I realized I knew pretty much everything I needed to know. So there were not, or there haven't been. There's only I've only been here a few months, so I don't want this to be my last words, my last famous words. But until now, I haven't had that many surprises. I mean, I have challenges, but that I knew were, and the challenges are what I expected them to be. But I also have some really wonderful surprise because I had a goal and how I wanted the company to grow, how I wanted the dancers to respond, and I thought it was going to take me some time, but I am so thrilled because really the result came immediately, and the dancers have been amazing in the studio, and they surprise me every day how I never expected. So that is a surprise, but it's a positive surprise. The truth is, I didn't really ask anybody to join the company. They all came to me. So all these beautiful, wonderful dancers that asked to join in all ranks of the company, not just the one that everybody knows. But like Casaligno and Fernandez, Cascetta, Madison Young and Gromova, but even the one that joined in other ranks, soloist or corps de ballet, they're all dancers that asked me to come and that they wanted to join. So what I look in a dancer, and they're all very different. This is what's so wonderful. They're all very different. So it's not a mold that I want, but I want people who have a soul, who have a burning desire to grow. So it's not just to dance, but it's to grow as artists. Yes, in 2007, I said I had my farewell performance, mainly in New York, but I had one at Milan. I had one in each city that meant something to me in my career, which was Milan. It was in Hamburg. It was in the great one, the big one in New York, in Tokyo, and. But after 7 years, I returned to the stage. Again, it wasn't something that I planned. I say that again, I do not plan my life. But it was a natural evolution. I mean, I was really missing, I wasn't missing performing, but I was missing dance. I was missing who I am. There was a part of my life which is a huge part, and that has been a huge part since I was 4 years old, that was kind of switched off. I put it into another room, and I didn't dare to open the room and look in. And then it just happened that I was walking on the streets of New York, and I bumped into the choreographer and director Martha Clark, who approached me and asked me if I wanted to work with her. And I actually thought, well, why not? And I thought it would be really interesting to do things that I haven't never, not big ballets, big role, but even something quite small off Broadway, just to discover another dimension of performing. And so the project Ferri came along, and it became very successful. We had like 100 performances at the Signature Theater in New York, and that became the start of a whole new phase of another 10 years of my artistic life. From there, when McGregor approached me for Wolf Works, for Virginia Woolf and John Neumeier, for Eleonora Duse, and so on, so on. So I ended up having 10 amazing years later on that were not expected. I was very curious to do new things, and also curious about myself on stage, being 50 until I was 60. And they have been some really beautiful, meaningful years for me. I don't do class right now. In fact, I think that, when I do something, I do it fully. So when I stopped with Wolfworks, again in New York at the Met, when I stopped, I stopped. I threw all my shoes away. I'm like, okay, it's done. So right now I am so fully committed and involved, and I give all my energy to the Wiener Staatsballett, the company, the rehearsal, the dancers, the organizations. And so I don't miss dancing at all at this moment in my life, because I have dance in my life in another form through the young dancers, and there's such fulfillment and pleasure in sharing myself and my knowledge, my experience, my vision with the new generation. That again, I was privileged since 4 years old to wake up every day of my life and be happy about going to work, which for me is not work, but is a passion. But it's such a privilege in life to do that. And it still happens, but now it happens in a different way as a director. So that life in me continues. One of the major and probably the most important person in my artistic journey, was Sir Kenneth Macmillan. He picked me. I was 16 when I did the school performance at the Royal Ballet School, the concerto. I was doing his second movement in the pas de deux of his ballet concerto, and soon after I joined the company. And he made me aware of who I am as an artist. He guided me to get to know myself and to get to know my depth and interiority, and how I could express that through dance, by giving me his most amazing ballets, which were Mayerling was my big debut when I was 18, and shortly after Manon and Romeo and Juliet, and then he created for me several pieces in London and in New York with American Ballet Theatre. So I think that I consider him my artistic father, really. And I still have certain things he told me, certain phrases he told me. He wasn't somebody who spoke a lot in rehearsals, but what he said was always the key for the role that I was interpreting at the moment, at the time. And I carry that with me every day, and I love rehearsing and coaching dancers in his work, like we are doing Manon here, and I coach many dancers in Romeo and Juliet, and different drummer at the Royal Ballet, which was one of the pieces he created for me. So I really somehow our sensitivity and connected, that's what I can say, because I was very young, so I was very unaware of what was happening to me and how privileged I was to work at 18 or 19 with him. But it was it was the right thing at the right time. My vision for the Wiener Staatsballett is that it's one of the great major ballet company. It belongs to a house which is magnificent, to a city that is one of the most elegant and historical city of the world. And I think that this is a classical ballet company, and that's what I want to do. And by classical, I don't mean that we need to only look at the past. There are wonderful classical works that belongs to today, and there are some amazing choreographers who are able to choreograph for a classical ballet company and use our vocabulary, and I think I'm very determined that we need to and preserve it, but also what makes classical ballet actual today is the truth that the interpreters bring to a role. So if the ballet dancer understands what they're doing, then it's poignant today. And the companies, as I say, they're dancing incredibly, and Kali Roe by Alexei Ratmansky was a huge success. It's very powerful, very beautiful, and it's a showcase for what this company really is. And the same way that these operas are filling the house and having an echo in the world, we will as a ballet company. The opera house, it is an opera house. So yes, the opera is definitely the queen, and in this house there are many more performances of opera than ballet. But I do not like, and I do not share the phrase that the ballet is the Cinderella, because it's not true, because we are sold out every night. We perform in 2 houses. We also perform at the Volksoper, which is a slightly smaller house, always in Vienna. We having a very rich rep. Right now we are rehearsing for a bill with Justin Peck, Wade McGregor, Twyla Tharp. And therefore we opening a new, at the same time we're performing in the other house, Thierry Malandin, Marie Antoinette, which is super successful, and we will open another mixed bill at the other house in a couple of months. We have Manon, Giselle, and then we have an evening dedicated to Sir Frederick Ashton, Christopher Wheeldon. So really, we're doing less performances, and I do wish we could do more, but we are definitely have a huge following, so I'm really thrilled about that. There are also some logistical and structural reason why we can do more performances. It's an old house. We don't have the luxury of having several stages and being able, so every time you change from one production in the morning to a production in the evening, it takes many hours, because it's still, the theater is still built. It doesn't have the luxury of being able to expand, and also to have room to have more studios, because we can build above or next to it. Therefore, the amount of rehearsals that you can have are limited, because the logistics. So one has to take everything in consideration when you plan, and also for some of the reasons or why there are maybe some less. We could do with more shows, that's for sure. I'm very good at relaxing, I think, is in the way I am. Often I go, like I sometimes at weekends, if I can, I go away, and I either go back to London to visit one of my daughter, or to Milan to visit the other. I think being with my family is very relaxing for me, because I really enter a different reality. Therefore, I stop thinking about work and about either problems or issues, or so I do enjoy spending time with my family a lot. Sometimes they come and visit me, and if I can go, I actually like to be home, in my home, and read, watch movie, just really be alone. Actually, being alone for me is very relaxing, is very peaceful. My daughters have nothing to do with my artistic world. One works in the food industry, and the other one works in the editorial. They have an editing with her husband. I'm actually a grandmother now. I have a little niece, she's now 6 months old. So yeah, it's lovely.